In the chat, you can see the link.
Yes,
So
sir.
dates are already mentioned there.
Okay, sir. I will
Yeah,
receive, sir. Thank you. Sure.
yeah.
So
Okay,
we
then
will
let's.
start this.
Yeah,
We'll
we
start.
can start now. Yeah.
Okay.
So you can see the screen, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay. Let's now go on to. Okay, I will not restrict directly to electron beam melting process. We will see the post treatment process, and we will see in common whichever is related to most of the additive manufacturing process. We don't restrict with electron beam melting because there are most of the things which are quite common with a lot of additive manufacturing process. So we see the general trend or general scenario as such. Okay, first the question rises why we need a post processing, because additive manufacturing as such what we try to introduce is because it can produce near net shape component. When a process can produce near net shape component that can be used directly in service, then the question comes why we need post treatment. So these are the few instances why post treatment of the part is absolutely necessary or essential. First, whenever we use an additive manufacturing process, our raw material is going to be powder or wire. If it is going to be wire, we will not have any material wastage, or we may not have any excess material around the surrounding the parts which is being produced. In case if you are not going to have wires, if it is going to be powder, then definitely we need to remove first the powder from which is surrounding the part from the part itself. So we need an extensive powder removal approach, which is the first step after production. Most of the additive manufacturing process, be it BSLM, be it SLS, direct energy deposition, not direct energy deposition, but E-beam, we have this kind of problem where there will be a lot of powder surrounding the material, and removal of the powder is very essential and prerequisite. And the second thing, when it comes to additive manufacturing processes, we said that we connect the material, let's say the part, with the substrate plate using some kind of structures or support structures, so that we will have easy removal of the part from the support structure. When this happens, when the part is going to be produced at very fast rate, very high cooling rates, there will be a problem that there will be a lot of internal stresses that is generated within the material, and these internal stresses within the material will make the material brittle when you use it in a real time application. So in order to reduce the brittleness of the material, you can you have to go for an operation called stress relief operation, where the internal stresses in the material, the internal stresses that are developed during the production, they are relaxed, so that you will be able to reduce the or increase the ductility of the material, reduce the brittleness of the material. That is called a stress relieving operation. So this stress relieving operation will be very essential for the uh, materials that are produced with high cooling rate processes such like SLM, direct energy deposition, which you can include also lens and other processes. When it comes to sintering based processes like SLS or E-beam, we don't need a stress relieving operation, because in a SLS process you have you are going to do conventional sintering, and hence you don't need to the conventional sintering takes long period of time, so you don't need a stress relieving operation. When it comes to E-beam, since the powder bed is kept at high temperatures for quite long time, there is no requirement for stress relieving operation. But in SLM and DED, since you have uh, very high cooling rates observed, you have to go for stress relieving operation, which is prerequisite. And then comes the removal of part from the substrate plate. You can see here the parts are aligned here, and the substrate plate is shown here, which is in a tilted. And you can see that the bars are stuck with the substrate plate. And of course, you can see that uh, you take care that the support has to be chopped off in order to remove the part from the substrate plate. So this is very essential that you remove the part from the substrate plate. And once you remove the part from the substrate plate, of course, part removal is going to take time, and it also needs some kind of external labor with some kind of machines. You need a milling machine, some kind of good milling machine with thin blades so that you don't destroy the part, but just remove the support structure. Then comes the thermal treatment. In most of the cases, in most of the cases, you need to have a thermal treatment because in most of the cases you may not have the right kind of microstructure, and so you need to treat the material thermally so that you can modify the microstructure. For example, in case of titanium based alloys, the room temperature microstructure is going to be, if you are familiar with little bit of metallurgy, you can understand this. The room temperature microstructure is going to be the HCP phase. But in sometimes, if you use additive manufacturing like a SLM process, you will end up with a martensitic microstructure and not a beta phase microstructure. The martensite is generally brittle, and hence in order to go with beta phase microstructure, you need to undergo some external thermal treatment. This is also valid not only for phase transformation, but also for improving the ductility or modifying the strength or modifying the ductility of the material. And then we may also consider for hot isostatic pressing. This is one of the thermomechanical treatment because this treatment might be very essential and useful if your material is going to have a lot of porosity. Invariably, most of the additive manufacturing processes will lead to porosity in the material, even though the process parameters are optimized in such a way that you will end up with a near theoretical strength, but not 100% dense material. You are always trying to go near the theoretical strength, but you cannot be sure that you will get 100% density because there might be a possibility that there will be some porosity due to process parameters or due to absorbed gas from the powder particles. So when you undergo an isostatic pressing or HIP, there you are going to supply the material with compressive stresses, and you are going to compress them in a hot condition so that any porosity that is present in the material, there is a chance that you will close the porosity during the hot isostatic pressing or hipping operation. This is not essential, but this is recommended if you want to improve the density of the material, but it is not an absolute necessary. Then comes the surface treatments, because most of the material, most of the parts that are produced with additive manufacturing will have invariably some kind of surface roughness. The roughness of the surface will depends upon the diameter of the powder which you use, and it also depends upon the layer thickness which you are going to employ. For example, if you are going to employ a layer thickness of 20 micrometer, you will have a surface roughness almost around this dimensions. But if you are going to employ a material with 100 micrometer surface roughness, sorry, layer thickness, your surface roughness will be much coarser, more than 20 micrometer, and hence you need to undergo surface treatment. The surface treatment can be done by several operations. Either it can be done using mechanical surfacing, or it can be done using chemical or electrochemical based surfacing operations. So there are various ways to do it, and we will see some of them as we go along. And one another way is the mechanical ways can be machining. Machining might also be needed in cases where, like certain a sintering process where you have given some allowances for the shrinkage, some allowances for distortion and so on. In those cases, you need to definitely undergo some machining operation to take care of these allowances so as to use the material in the service. We need to remove the allowances, so you need some kind of machining. Here there is an example which is shown here where you can see the part produced before machining in the as prepared condition, the part produced after machining. Before machining Before machining in the as prepared condition you have a very rough surface, and after machining you have a relatively very smooth surface. That is what surface treatment or a machining operation can do to your sample. And finally you need a inspection or a quality control in order to be certify the components that they are good enough to be used in the application and the desired application. So in general, you have a lot of uh, post processing operations where some of them are mandatory and some of them are optional. We can just classify them, the mandatory and optional ones here, so that it will be clear for you guys. So let's mark the mandatory with M and mark the optional with O. So powder removal is going to be a requisite post-processing operation because we are using powder. So this is a mandatory post-processing operation. Stress relieving, depending upon the process, it may be mandatory or it may be optional. But I will keep it mostly with optional because even with process that can induce high stresses, we can skip this, uh, basically considering time and cost. Part removal is going to be mandatory because you always have a support structure between the part and the substrate plate, and hence you need to remove them so that you can remove the part from the substrate plate. Thermal treatment is going to be optional because depending upon the application, depending upon the composition, depending upon the part, depending upon the process which you use, thermal treatment may or may not necessary. Hard hydrostatic pressing is again optional because it again depending upon the process, depending upon the conditions, depending upon the amount of porosity, you may or you may not require. Surface treatment, I will generally say uh, it is kind of semi-mandatory because we will not use such rough surface directly in any application, so we have to go for some kind of treatment, but it is not absolutely necessary, but it is always beneficial if you have a smoother surface when it comes to tensile property or fatigue property or even fracture toughness is involved. So the surface treatment can be done by various means. We will see further. Machining is going to be a highly optional process, and inspection and quality control is going to be mandatory because you should be very clear and you should be sure about the quality of the product, and otherwise you cannot use it in a real time application. So we can see the we can define the further into the different post processing steps. First, excess material removal. This can be done as we saw, it can be done by machining. Excess material removal is necessary because of various allowances that are introduced in the material, be it be distortion, be it be warpage, or be it be shrinkage. These elements are given based on the physical properties of the material, and there are other elements that has to be given like hardware based elements, and these elements are dependent on the capability of the hardware component or capability of the process which you are using. For example, if you want to have some fixtures in your material and you have to give some allowance for boring, or you have to give some allowance so that you can introduce screws or some like screws in the material, so you have to give some allowance there. So either depending upon the physical property of the material or depending upon the hardware capability of the process you use, you may need to remove excess material based upon the allowances given. So this is a very critical and very important step we have to take into account. Then comes curing or heat treatment. We already saw that if we are going to use the material, if you want a change in the phase of the material, the microstructure of the material, or the phases in the material, you need to go for a thermal treatment. Of course, we saw that. Curing is something which you employ normally if you are going to uh, modify the grain size or the grain morphology of the microstructure. If you are using it also highly depend on the process specific aspects, because if we are going to use a sintering operation, we don't need to go for such heat treatment or curing. Of course, we saw support removal, we are not going into it again. Machining, it's again interconnected with several factors. S- uh, we also go for different surface finishing process. Of course, it's not, it can be bead blasting or it can be sand blasting. Sand blasting or bead blasting is one of the surface finishing process where the sand or the bead is going to hit against the surface of the material. Since it is hitting against the surface of the material, you will be able to reduce the surface roughness, or you can reduce the asperities in the material, and at the same time you will be able to improve the fatigue strength of the material, because since it is hitting, it will introduce generate compressive stresses in the material, and since you generate compressive stresses in the material, the fatigue life of the material gets increased or improved. Similarly, you may have to improve the aesthetics. So if you are going to use the part in any commercial operation, you may need to introduce some colors to the parts based on the other parts which is associated with the same component. You may have to introduce certain amount of coloring, or you have to paint the component. And of course, quality control is essential. With this, we will see these steps little bit more in detail, because first we go with excess material removal. So excess material removal is necessity when you are giving allowance to the component. The allowance you give may be based on the physical properties of the material. If it is going to be based on the physical properties, this is based on the shrinkage. This is due to solidification. When you cool any material from very high temperature to room temperature, and when it undergoes a liquid to solid transformation, you will always have either a contraction or an expansion of the material. For example, if you are pouring water in any mold, and if you are cooling the water, what happens is you will have ice, but the volume of the water increases. After it gets into ice, you see that there is some kind of expansion in the volume of the water or ice. The same thing, if you are heating a material like aluminum from a solid state and you heat it to 660 degrees centigrade where it is going to melt, and you heat slightly above 660 so that you have a stable melt, the volume of the material decreases. Similarly, some metals you may have an increase in volume, some metal you may have a decrease in volume. And when you try to cool the material from liquid state to the solid state. Whenever you cool, there will be some kind of contraction depending upon the material's volume increase or volume decrease. When there is a contraction, it will lead to some shrinkage in the material, and to avoid the dimensional accuracy or problems with the dimension, you always have some kind of allowances for this kind of shrinkage in the material. The amount of shrinkage will also depend upon the type of material, type of alloy, or the quality of the material which we are going to use. So every metal will have a different rate at which it shrinks or expands during solidification. So for this you always give some allowance, and this has to be taken care, or this has to be removed once there is a solidification. Similarly, you will have warpage or distortion in the material. For instance, you have a substrate plate, flat substrate plate, or you are going to build a material which is very long, very long. So if you are going to build something, there will be always some stresses developed along this edge and stresses developed along this edge. Of course, we have to take into account that we will have support structures between the substrate plate and the sample surface. For example, assume this is going to be a substrate plate and you have your sample produced here, very long, and then you have the support structure between them. And when you produce such material, generally what happens is that if you are producing using selective laser melting process, you will have a very high degree of cooling rate, and hence there will be high internal stresses. So it will end up with some kind of distortion or warpage along the material surface. It will no longer be flat. So you have some kind of warpage. It goes like this. The flatness of the surface is distorted. The flatness of the surface is not maintained. So such kind of warpage or distortion needs some allowance to so that you can machine the extra area so as to get a very flat surface. And this kind of allowance also depends upon the physical properties of the material, how much, depending upon the solidification rate, depending upon the cooling rate, depending on the growth of the interface, it will have certain kind of internal stresses, and depend upon the internal stresses and the strength of the material, you may have some kind of distortion or warpage. And of course, when it comes to the allowances, depending upon the shrinkage, depending upon the warpage and so on, but you need to take into account that we need to find the right method to remove such excess material. It can be machining, it can be drilling, it can be boring, it can be any metal removal operation that can remove the material in such a way that it will not disturb the as produced material, the necessary volume part of the as produced material. Of course, to improve the aesthetics of the material, these parts can be subjected to finishing operation, be it be electrolytic refining, be it be other refining methods. But one important thing one has to understand here is that, of course, machining is going to be very easy because conventionally we do machine parts, we do machine several features to get it. But when it comes to additive manufacturing, our aim is to produce near net shape microstructure, and our aim is to use the components directly in service. But when you have when you need to machine these components after production, there will not be we cannot follow our own promise of using the as produced part in the real-time application, and hence definitely we have to go for some machining operation. But if the part is going to be extremely complex in shape, for example, if you are going to have a bulk component, machining is going to be a straightforward operation. But if you are going to have a component which is made up of lattice structure, or when you are going to have a component which is made up of different structures, it is not an easy affair to undergo mechanical based polishing, and hence use electrolytic polishing let's say let's try substitute and assume there are two parts. One is a cylinder, the other going to be the part with complex shape. So you have one cylinder, the other part with, let's put, we don't go into complex shape, but let's say it has a cellular structure, and the other part has a complex shape. So what happens is when you are going to machine this part with bulk structure, you will have no problem and you can use traditional milling operations. But if you are going to mill or machine the part with structure, you cannot apply full load, and then you have to do, it will be better instead of a mechanical based operation, it will be better to see if there are some electrochemical or chemical based operation to remove some unwanted material or to remove the excess material. But if the part is going to be very complex, you have no other choice. You have no choice of machining, because if you are going to machine it, you will be able to lose the intricacy that is developed during additive manufacturing, and you will be losing the quality of the material as such. So, depending upon the intricacy, you may have a difficulty in machining the parts. More the complex the part is, either the shape or more the complexity, it is going to be very, very, very difficult to machine any part, and simultaneously to up to get the properties that is intended for any real-time applications. So support removal. Support is going to be one of the crucial aspect or one of the important aspect, and support removal is going to be crucial when it comes to post processing. Any material that is produced using powder, excepting selective laser sintering and binder jetting operation, all the additive manufacturing processes that are available will require some kind of supports, and this cannot be removed intentionally uh, unintentionally. So once the part is produced, once the powder is removed, there is absolute necessary to remove the support so as to remove the sample. Support. Once the support is removed, either from the part, there are several aspects we have to consider when removing the supports, because the supports can be designed in several ways. Either you can make it thick, you can make it thin, you can make it hard, you can make it soft, and so on. So in order to remove the support easily from the substrate plate and also from the material, I am just talking about the supports which is added at the bottom of the material. I am not talking about support which are, I'm just talking about support which is added here at the bottom of the material. Okay, then we will see about the other supports which are, we call it as overhanging supports, because if you are going to make a sample vertical, if you are going to make a sample vertical, we'll have support only at the bottom. If you are going to make an sample at an angle inclined, then we will have support wherever you have an overhanging sections. This is very important and very crucial. So you can, if you are going to have some overhanging supports like this, you can always modify the angle of the supports. For example, you can see here they are protruded from outside like this. They can always have direct straight supports, but then if you are going to have a straight support here, the figure will be straight, support will be straight. So the building time increases. At the same time, there are some complex features here and here. So you have to produce in certain direction depending upon the surface roughness of this part and so on. In this case, you may have an extension of supports by angling the supports in. You try to use fine tooth kind of a structure instead of self-reliance support. This is because very fine tooth structures they are very easy to remove just by breaking. But harder the support, it is going to be very difficult. So if you see here, there are some kind of block supports. So if you see a block support, you try to either bypass the material in left or the right, depending on the direction in which you wish to go, and then you will have either in the left or right, you will have the supports extended, and you also try to make sure that you don't have lot of supports adjacent to each other. Try to give some gap between the places between the supports. For example, if you have lot of concentration of support here, you try to extend the support and come somewhere in a area which is away from the other supports. That is more important, so that removal will be pretty easy. You can angle the supports, you can extend it, but then come to the place where it is free from uh, material. There you have easy removal. It will help in easy removal. You may also have to improve the fineness of the support, and you may also play with the process parameters such a way that it can be the supports are not so hard and it can be easily removable. The second thing when it comes is the curing or heat treatment. As I said, this kind of thermal treatment is required under several conditions. One, when you want to modify the microstructure, or first stress relieving, which we saw, if it has a high degree of internal stresses, we need to relieve them, and then we need thermal treatment. If you want to modify the grain size or grain morphology, like recrystallization, you go with annealing kind of a heat treatment. If you want to change the microstructure, if you want to modify the faces, then of course you have to go for thermal treatments. If you want to modify the mechanical properties like strength, ductility, fatigue, fracture toughness, you have to go for thermal treatment. And if you want to close internal porosity, improve ductility, improve fatigue property, you may also go for hipping, in, including thermal treatment or without thermal treatment. So here there are some examples. You can see the as produced sample has very high strength and reduced hardness. Once you thermally heat treat the sample to certain degree, suddenly there is a drop in strength and also drop in ductility to certain extent. And then you use a hip sample. Strength is almost similar and it is going in this fashion, and finally after necking is going to go down. And if you have a hip or if you have a extremely heat treated sample, you may also have sudden drop in or gradual drop in strength, at the same time drop in ductility as well. So depending upon the strength requirements, depending upon the internal stress assessments, depending upon the other factors which you see here, you may also go for heat treatment or thermal treatment or curing operation. And finally, one has to take care about the surface finishing, because for any material to be used in an industrial application, you may always look for a smooth surface in the material. That's where the surface finishing operations kick in. The surface finishing operations can be of two types, either mechanical based operations or chemical based or electrochemical based operations. When it comes to mechanical operation, again, you can categorize them into several ways. One can be machining by grinding. There are also options like machine based machining, where we can say You have the actual machining using a tool, and then you can also see you can machine it using the flow of abrasive particles, abrasive milling. You also have burnishing, ball burnishing, where you try to use balls in order to cold work on the surface of the material and try to work hard on it in uh, the presence of small area, so that the material becomes hard along the surface, and during the hardening process it also becomes relatively smoothened based on the events uh, softening criteria. And then it comes other machining like vibratory machining and sandblasting and so on. These are the general machining operations that can be used for smoothing the surface of the material. Apart from this, you also have chemical or electrochemical machining. In case of chemical machining, painting, manual painting also comes under kind of a chemical machining because, uh, sorry, chemical based finishing technique, because it not only gives aesthetics to the component, but it also gives corrosion resistance to the components if they are. So since it is giving aesthetics, this is one of the finishing process, and you can also use manual painting or machine painting for these things. There is also a cleaning process that is involved that may be utilized to remove some adjacent powder particles sticking on the surface, that is using acetone dipping or ethanol dipping. And you also have electroplating, and for instance we have proposed one of the projects where we try to dip the entire component in a uh, electro refining solution, and you have cathode and anode, and we try to extract the unwanted material from the component so that the substance become very smooth. So such kind of machining is very extensively used in case of large scale operation, in scale of let's say 500 k plus euro based operations. And but most widely what people use is sandblasting, where they try to take the part out of the machine, they blast it with the alumina sand or any sand, or they use powder. And once they uh, introduce sandblasting, the surface also becomes slightly smoother because the impinging action of the sand will also remove some of the burrs from the material. And not only that surface gets shines, but it also introduce compressive stresses in the material, thereby enhancing thermal shock resistance in the material. And apart from these operations, I do not see any significant post processing operations that people have generally involved with additive manufacturing. uh, Yeah, I don't see any other additive post processing steps that have been actively used. So we can summarize here by saying that there are few post processing operations which are mandatory, few of them are optional, and mandatory post processing operations involve the part removal, powder removal, and surface treatment, and inspection and quality control. And the other optional ones involve thermal treatment or stress relief, hard pressing and machining, etc. Of course, you can always introduce this surface treatment and machining together if so they are together. If not, these are the main post processing operations that is applied to several additive manufacturing process, and these are going to be based on the process which you are going to use, and this cannot be held common for all the additive manufacturing processes. With this, I would like to summarize here, and let me know if you have some Questions?